Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
You know, involving other people in your journey. Like, how many times have you said to yourself, Mike, like, I'm going to do this thing, I want to make these changes, and so here I go, as opposed to, I need to make these changes and I need to get some people on board with me to help me make these changes. You know, I think there's, I mean, you and I know that. I mean, when we're fired up about something and we're involving other people in the process of that, I think that's when we really start to see some changes, you know, or
well,
I think that's
synergy. This, right?
That is this. Yeah.
That is 100%. This. I mean, so we had an opportunity to have you in Redding.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're talking about the same funeral.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So this funeral, I mean, it hurts, but at the same time, it gave a handful of people an opportunity to meet Tyler Gould for the first time in person. I mean, they've poured their heart out to you.
Yeah.
And there's connections. You'd go to war for these people, but you had never met some of these Redding Richest Men in Town guests.
Yeah.
And so we literally scheduled a tour stop at a pizza parlor. And I love the pizza parlor because we always talk about people. All right, man, as a guest on the show, we're going to be talking about something and you're going to come in and it's just like you caught us up at a pizza parlor and we'll catch you up on the conversation and get your thoughts. And ironically, we invite the Redding Richest Men in Town guest community, not fans. Sorry, fans. I think that there are going to be a few people who are like, wait a minute, Tyler Gould was in Redding and you didn't tell me. It was a Richest Men in Town guest event.
Yeah.
Fan event, maybe later.
Yeah.
But I think it was an amazing space to see these folks connecting with you in person. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean,
you actually went around and connected on an individual basis with folks. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, it was something special. I mean, honestly, it's like, it was interesting. Like, I walked into the room fully expecting it was going to be you, and that's it. You know what I mean?
I did bring Kelly.
Which quite frankly, if it was you and Kelly, it would have been worth every minute. But it was cool to kind of walk in and see the faces that I've seen via Zoom, right? And I had zero apprehension about that moment. It was almost like walking into a room of people, my oldest friends. And I'm sure some of them were, you know, they stuck out their hands to shake my hand and I gave them a hug. You know, I mean, I felt like I'd known them for forever. So
it was kind of a surreal moment just watching it.
Yeah.
Because you have this unbelievable love, but you're meeting each other for the first time in person.
Yeah.
Like the room is full of love and the room is full of great people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right? The richest people we know are in this room.
Yeah.
They'd actually never made the personal connection.
Yeah, it was very cool. And I think that's, you know, there's something interesting, right? When you bare your soul to people, the connections, the roots grow quick and they grow deep, you know, and I don't know how everyone else felt, but I felt like I've known these people forever and they were like my brothers and sisters and I was excited to put my arms around them and just tell them how much I loved them, you know. I mean, it was a cool moment.
Yeah, David Hill was there. And David Hill, I think in our episode we talked about that vulnerability is the cornerstone of friendship.
Yeah.
And being vulnerable just makes those ties, Zoom or otherwise. They were there. Yeah. They were present. All right. And it was a palpable feeling. It was an amazing opportunity, amazing experience. I want to thank everyone for coming out. And the great thing too is like these folks are still in it, right? They're still battling.
Yeah, 100%. And
I mean, Mr. Rick was there. Mr. Rick came in and was like, talk to us, Mr. Rick, how are you? And he's like, I almost died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So he walks us through that struggle and the lessons. Every one of those people are learning lessons, right? And life is getting richer. Not necessarily more fun.
Yeah.
But life and life's experiences are teaching these people, and that richness just gets thicker and thicker and stronger, right?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Like if going back to this rallying the troops and kind of including people in your journey and in your life. I mean, for me, when I'm having a conversation with someone about how life is either kicking me in the shorts or whatever's happening, the victories or anything else, it becomes, for me, those moments, it's easier for me to pick out the lessons and the blessings and everything else when I'm having that conversation with someone else. So when I'm listening to Mr. Rick talk, or I'm talking to Tony G or to Carol or Brian, I just really felt like this is really what it's all about. Like I can recognize the blessings better in my life because of the conversations that I've had with that group of people. Do you know what I mean? So it was awesome, man. I mean, I loved it. You had to go. Abe had a basketball game, and that was awesome. But I think I stuck around for another hour and chatted with people, and it was a good time, man.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
that's fun. Hey, so it got me thinking, sitting there observing it, because you really did a great job, and Kelly and I commented later just how great it was for you to be able to peel off and actually connect one-on-one with some folks, right? It wasn't like everyone ran to the pizza parlor to hear Tyler Gould give a speech.
Right.
That wasn't it. But I mean, in those connections, I had an opportunity to just kind of survey the room a little bit, and it's incredible what you take away from the Richest Men in Town experience with each of these guests, right? Because while you were engaging in talking one-on-one with some folks, people were talking to me.
Yeah.
They were talking to me about their experience, and we were kind of reliving the experience of them coming on the show. And I would be like, man, when I see you, Tony G, I think of this.
Yeah.
Dr. Carol Wirtz, when I see you, man, I think about the choices that you made in that one moment that you shared with us, right? It's like,
yeah.
And so then you start thinking just the commonality of what makes that rich life, right?
Yeah, and the idea of a community of rich people, or people on the path to discovering richness, right? is amazing. And yeah, I mean, shoot, I had no, it would have been really cool to do a live show with everybody there.
It's got to happen sometime.
Right, that's got to happen sometime. But I'm glad that we didn't do that, and we just did it the way we did it, because when I walked in, I immediately wanted to sit down next to one person, not anyone in particular, but just one-on-one and just talk to them, and that was a cool thing. So, I mean, you've had the opportunity with those people for many years. And so it was cool for me to catch up. So I'm looking forward to, I'd love to say I'm looking forward to the San Diego version of that, which I am. I want to do that, but we have people all over the country, and in fact, all over the world, I guess we could say. We've had Kurt, who was in Kazakhstan at some point. But yeah, I think it'd be fun to get everybody together. I mean, there's a sense of community, and I thought it was cool to see everyone kind of talking, swapping notes with each other amongst themselves. Like, oh yeah, it was episode 36, and and
we had our first guest, Toby Crawford, guest number 1. We come up on episode 100, we're coming up on it. It was kind of cool to have the guy who got it started.
Yeah,
and everyone marveled a little bit.
Yeah, and can I just say, I mean, I love Toby Crawford. I mean, I got to spend a little extra time with them, and man, one of my favorite people in the world. So shout out to him.
Good dude, good people.
Yeah.
It got me thinking, you and I like golf.
Yeah.
It got me thinking a little bit about how you sit there, maybe you're on the tee box, first tee, and you're looking at maybe the group that's teeing off in front of you, or you're at the driving range and you're like man, everyone's got a little different flavor. Everyone's got a little different way to swing it. But in order to do it right, you got to be right when it matters, right? In that swing, you got to be right when you need to be. And I think as I looked about this room full of amazing people that we both admire and love, everyone does it a little differently, 100%. But where it matters, they do it right. And when it matters, they do it right.
Yeah. And I love that idea of everyone does it differently because, I think at least for myself, there's this, self-judgment that goes on a little bit where I think, oh gosh, if I could do it more like this person, then I'd be really where I need to be. But to be 100 episodes in and talking to so many different people who've all done it differently and are all arriving at the same spot is sort of inspiring, right? You see these completely different journeys from the Gopher Hill Festival to, Carol.
I was talking to Dave Hill about that Vespa, right? Like,
I heard your guys' conversation. Yeah, the Vespa on fire, or Carol Hill kind of traveling the country to end up where she is, right? I think it's just inspiring to see the different journeys and that we can all take different paths and end up in a good spot.
Yeah, we're sitting there hanging out with Dr. Carol Wirtz, who is an amazing educator, and I share this thought, and I share the fact that we're sitting on hours and hours and hours of amazing content. And she said, man, turn this thing into a book. And it's interesting when you look around, you have chapters in a book.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah. And how many times have we talked about the commonality of that rich life where like everyone in that space, everyone on this show has talked about friction.
Yeah.
It's talked about that adversity, right? It talked about keeping their heart open. They've talked about purpose and identity, right? And it's like, man, Carol, these are chapters in a pretty amazing book. So who knows where that goes, right? But it definitely felt and it read like that as I hung out with some amazing people.
Well, it's gonna happen. And Carol, she threw out
she reached out.
Let me help, and that's a dangerous thing when you reach out to Tyler and Mike and you say let me help. The answer is done, right?
Yeah, let's schedule that Zoom.
Yeah, absolutely. But very cool experience, and
it was
grateful for the 100 people that we know, that through this project that and some of those we've already known, but I'm grateful for the depth at which we know them now. This project.
And it was fun. I mean, they were asking about the progress of our project, right? They were asking about the progress of the podcast, not just about episode 100, but I mean, it was kind of cool. Kelly was there, so she was able to give kind of the Richest Men in Town wives perspective. Like, man, how are you able to support this, and what does this look like on a weekly basis? And she was able to just share just how jazzed we get, and how much life it actually gives us each week, having the ability to sit down and talk to amazing people. And for every room full of people that I know that you don't, there's a room full of people that that I don't know. And now we're starting to accumulate this group that neither of us have personally met. Beth Harding Young comes to mind, right?
Yeah,
a couple of episodes back, and Beth Harding Young had these amazing experiences that I'm talking to people at the water cooler at work about, and I've never actually met Beth Harding Young. So
yeah, I mean, it's a cool thing, right? I mean, you've talked about this idea of a tapestry before, and I think that obviously the tapestry only works when you have all of these different threads that are woven through it, and this project. I mean, look, I'm hoping that it's obviously you and I, right? We're always joking about how this is a selfish venture, and selfishly we've connected with 100 people, but the reality is, every single one of our listeners can have that same affinity for the people that you and I have had a chance to talk to simply through listening through these conversations. I mean, I've had people come up to me and say, oh my gosh, I love so-and-so, right? Because they listen to him. They've never met him, never seen him in their lives, but they love him, right? And that's what this project really is.
Yeah, we were able to get into it a little bit. I was talking to folks and just letting them know that hundreds of downloads every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Hundreds of downloads every week. And we start talking about locations throughout the world. And it starts getting pretty humbling, thinking like, hey, this is a thing that everyone feels, right?
Yeah.
This need for living rich, right? Trying to figure this life out, right? And we're doing it selfishly. Our listeners are selfish, right? Our listeners are looking at like, what can these folks talk to me and teach me about how to do it right as a parent, how to do it right as a partner, right? As a disciple. I mean, there's just lots of things that we can figure out. Yeah. And you mentioned for our friends around the world, hearts and prayers go out to Ukraine. I mean, it's not a political show, so we don't need to get into that, but that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a scary thing. So I don't know where we're at. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I just can't, we put it down on wax forever. I want to make sure that people know that when Mike and Tyler got together end of February 2022, that was on our minds, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the thing that ultimately helps us overcome these kind of big, issues in life, right, is connecting people and connecting to people. And maybe if we did a better job of that on a global scale, we'd be in a different spot. But hey, we'll play our little part here, right? We'll connect some people, and hopefully good things will come from that.
65 countries and counting, Richest Men In Town community. So, and really, I think there is something powerful about, hey, pull up a chair and listen to somebody.
Yeah, and
pull up a chair and listen to somebody.
Totally, that's the one. It's funny because walking into that room of people the other night, that was maybe my one regret. I honestly wanted to sit down with each person individually and just pick up the conversation and go for 2 more hours, like one-on-one right there. Unfortunately, that wasn't possible, and I apologize to everybody for sort of the spreading thin of the conversations. But gosh, yeah, those in-depth conversations, and it's cool when you walk in a room full of people that you've had in-depth conversations with. Like my connection was so deep, I wanted to just sit right back down and say, hey, tell me about your dad, or tell me about what's going on with this in your life. Like you knew things, so it's very cool.
Yeah, I think the world needs some depth, right? This is I say that coming back from Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, where literally there was no depth for like 5 days, right? It was me and I walked in at 225, got it on 225, Tyler.
Yeah.
And now I'm at 231. So
yeah, that's
I got some work. I brought back some souvenirs.
Hey, that's all right, man. That's all right. You got to do it every once in a while, man.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to unplug. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So hey, I shared with you some things, right? Yeah. I'm reading The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. Amazing book. She shared this idea of secrets of adulthood.
Okay.
Secrets of adulthood, and I'm thinking as I'm reading this, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like. I got a text from Tyler Gould that looks exactly like this. The idea being, what do we know? We're in our mid 40s. We've had these life experiences. What has life taught us, and putting it down on paper so that we use it to shape our decisions, right? We use it to shape where it is we're trying to go. So can I share a couple of things from yours? This wasn't like secrets of adulthood.
Sure.
But Gretchen Rubin, I appreciate the thought. Tyler Gould has a couple of these thoughts. Don't let other people's doubts become your own.
Yeah.
Hard work can solve a lot of things. Like chapters from a book, right? When we say God loves everyone, it really means everyone. So like behind each of these, I'm assuming there's some personal experiences, right? Maybe good, bad, and ugly,
for sure,
that have taught Tyler Gould these truths, right?
Yeah. It's I think I shared this with you a while back, but when my son was leaving home to go serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you start to. And he's my second that's left to do that. But, you start to kind of take some inventory on some things that you've learned that maybe aren't just the fluff of life, right? Like, hey, we love going to Disneyland as a family. That's great, but let's talk about what's really meaningful. And so I compiled a list of some things that I thought were important for me to share with him and with the rest of my kids. But yeah, the thing is, like, that list of, I can't remember, is it 10 items, but is some of that is shaped by my conversations with people in RMIT, so definitely influenced. And if those things weren't discussed directly, those things were reinforced through my conversations that I had with other people. So
yeah, let me throw a couple more out, and then we'll invite, I think, our listeners. It's a great practice, right? It's a great pull up a piece of paper and take down some things that whatever you want to call them, lessons from life. I've got a list of things that I believe, right? And I share it everywhere I go. Compassion and mercy are more important than almost everything.
Yeah.
Be confident. You can stand on your own 2 feet. God loves you for who you are and will make up the difference. Man, there's like 2-hour episodes in each of these, right? But I mean, I think it really does come down to, I've been big on this. Elder Uchtdorf gave a talk. We had a missionary here serving in Redding, and personal, you get closer to some than others, sure, right? Yeah, and this guy actually comes from Pennsylvania, knows where my daughter's serving, and we would talk often about the people and the kind of community where she's at. And so that endeared me to him. And as he left, he dropped this little nugget of a talk. It's from a 2018 General Conference from Elder Dieter Uchtdorf for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it's called "Believe, Love, and Do." I'll drop that talk link into the show notes. It's incredible, right?
Yeah.
The idea of like a complexity of discipleship and what that looks like, boiled down to the thought of believing, loving, and doing. Kind of going to that charity and compassion.
Yeah.
Almost mean everything, right?
Yeah.
But believing, loving, and doing. And I'm not going to get necessarily into his points on each of those, on each aspect of that talk, but he said in a couple of moments when it's probably most powerful, he starts off with things like, I've experienced this for myself.
Yeah, yeah.
And that statement, I've come to know for myself. And the second that he enters into that space, it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I love that point, Mike, because I think that there's a lot of times where we don't fully recognize the experiences that we had that we have had that have been transformational. Sometimes we look and we go, gosh, so-and-so's done these things and they're amazing things, and we discount where we've been, right? And I think that if we really kind of sat back, like you said, and took out a piece of paper and wrote some notes down about our own personal experiences, there's a lot of times that we can say, I know this because I've experienced this for myself, right? And I think that it's important that we identify that we're quicker to say, hey, sometimes we want to delete things. We go, that thing was horrible. I never want to experience that again. And that's okay. That's that whole recollect versus remember thing, right? But maybe that's an important principle that we sit down and go, gosh, I know that this thing is good because I've experienced it for myself, or I know that this thing is not good because I've experienced it for myself, and therefore I don't want to experience it again. I think all those have some a different level of importance in our lives. But my point is, we don't need to discount our own experiences and say, gosh, if I have this one big experience, then I will be in a better spot. I think we need to sit back, take inventory, and the accumulation of experiences, small, can be just as powerful as someone's one big experience.
Well, I think that I love the context of you talking about your son leaving, right? Because that's almost like if you could put yourself in those shoes, what would you share that you know?
Yeah.
That you absolutely know. And knowing, I think this came up with Mitch, but knowing is that combination of heart and mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And today, right now in 2022, like the heart matters.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes that mind wants to discredit things or wants to get in there and throw in some questions. That's fine. But like in that moment, when you learn that thing, how did you feel?
Yeah.
And can you feel so now? Can you remember that feeling now? Because like I'm in an interesting place in life, right? And I'm looking and I'm learning from people who are a little step ahead. Part of it is through this Richest Men in Town project, right? This podcast. But like I've got things that are scary.
Yeah.
I've got kids that are going to go off and start their own lives. I've got a mom who's aging. I've got grandparents who may not be right. And so you start thinking like when those things start falling, you really got to lean on what do I know?
Yeah.
And it really becomes powerful when you take out a piece of paper and you tell somebody, write somebody a letter, like an old fashioned letter.
It's a great point. Yeah.
You know, and just put it down forever somewhere so that in that process, it's interesting because people jump on our podcast as guests and then afterwards they'll be like, man, the process was amazing. Thanks guys. That was cool.
Right.
Like I'm just inviting people, obviously come on the show. If you're living a rich life, we want to know your name. We want to get you on the program. But if you're just listening, take out a piece of paper, write dear somebody and write down those things that you know.
Even if that's your own name, dear Tyler, here it is.
Yeah, dear Tyler, right.
I mean, I agree, man. I was talking to a group of people last week and one of the things I asked them was I said, I want everyone think about a moment where you really felt, something, where you felt something that was
felt.
Yeah, where you felt it, right? And then we talked about, I said, I don't want to know what that moment is, but I want you to like visualize it so it's there. You're like, your recall is like, it's real, right? And then we got to burn those things into our souls, right? We have to those have to become quick recall moments because, we're going through life, which is distracting us always from those things that we've learned that were transformational. I think we got to get to the point where we have, the quick remembrance feature where we can just go bring it up. All right, there.
Quick recall. Yep.
Right, yep.
Not recall.
Felt it.
Not recall.
Yeah, no, that's why. Yeah, right. But yeah, but you're right. Yeah. So I love that. I love that idea of a letter. That's great.
Yeah. Here's an example from Elder Uchtdorf's talk, Believe, Love, Do.
Yeah.
Even when you think that you are not lovable, he, Jesus Christ, reaches out to you. This very day, every day, he reaches out to you, desiring to heal you, to lift you up, and to replace the emptiness in your heart with an abiding joy. He desires to sweep away any darkness that clouds your life and fill it with the sacred and brilliant light of his unending glory. I have experienced this for myself.
Yeah.
It's a powerful statement in and of itself, but when he ends it that way, I have experienced this for myself. He's instantly relatable.
Yeah.
You want to pull up a chair with Elder Uchtdorf and say, talk to me about that.
100%, man. I mean, I was, again, going back to last week, I was talking to this group of people and I was telling them, when I was young, I remember people talking to me and explaining things. And some of those things I thought, I have no idea what they're talking about because I've never felt that. And I don't know. And then I told them, but here I am, however many years later, and I can tell you that I felt that for myself. And this is what it felt like for me, right?
I felt that for myself. That is a powerful statement, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's an invitation. Like, I've done it, you can too.
Absolutely.
Or I've done it, and so have you.
Yeah, it's attainable, right?
You have done this. You have been there. Look back and bring back that experience. And I think that there's going to be some power there, and there's going to be some heat that might just keep us warm if life does get a little cold.
Yeah, and it's going to get a little cold. I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, we're going to go through peaks and valleys.
Well, I think of Julie Gephardt.
Yeah.
Right? Julie Gephardt and losing her husband.
Absolutely.
And the power of him still living on in her life as she remembers.
Yeah.
And it's not an academic remembrance. It's a heart thing. Like, man, I remember how he made me feel. I remember how when we had this experience. And I think that there's something about being intentional about going in and pushing those buttons and bringing those feelings back.
Yeah, I think it's it's necessary. It has to happen, right? If we have those experiences and we let them fade to black at some point, then we're not taking advantage of the opportunities that were given us, right? I mean, I remember my parents used to say, "Well, don't do this thing because I did that thing," and I can tell you, it's not a good thing, right? So, but we want to be able to kind of, when we learn those lessons, to let them sink deep in our soul, so we don't have to continue to search them out every time we're in a bad spot, or in a good spot. So
yeah, I also shared with you, it's like the universe, Tyler Gould, is prompting me to read Tolkien.
Oh man, yeah.
Okay, I've never been a fan. I've never been a fan. But Mitch Lowther, you caught it last episode. He quotes.
He does.
He quotes the Return of the King, right? My body's broken. You have to let me go. I go to my fathers, in whose company I shall not now feel ashamed. And we had that great conversation about not feeling shamed and like living up to that legacy of faith of people that have gone before us. And so so there was that moment, there was that experience. And then I stumble on this poem from Kipling, or not. I stumble on this poem from Tolkien, and I thought it was just a standalone poem that he wrote, right?
Yeah.
But actually it's embedded. It's actually a song that Bilbo Baggins sings.
Man, all right.
In
Let's hear it, man.
The Fellowship of the Ring, right?
Are you going to sing it or just?
I'm not going to sing it.
Okay.
I'm not going to sing it. But I'm curious. I'm curious to see if this does to Tyler Gould's heart what it did to mine, right?
All right, let's hear it.
I sit beside the fire and think of all that I've seen, of meadow flowers and butterflies in summers that have been, of yellow leaves and gossamer in autumns that there were, with morning mist and silver sun and wind upon my hair. I sit beside the fire and think of how the world will be when winter comes without a spring that I shall ever see. For still there are so many things that I've never seen. In every wood, in every spring, there is a different green. I sit beside the fire and think of people long ago, and people who will see a world that I shall never know. But all the while I sit and think of times there were before. I listen for returning feet and voices at the door. Right. So sometimes I sit by the fire and think, and I think about the places that I've been. I think about the people. I think about the experience that I've had. And we know of our own mortality. You started the show talking about a funeral of a loved one, right? We're reminded that we're all diagnosed with something terminal.
Yeah.
And how important it is. I think part of this rich life is to understand that it's fleeting moment, to understand and try to capture it, and to think that there's a winter for all of us at some point with a spring that we'll never know.
Yeah.
And then the idea too, that it's all about, he has all of these thoughts sitting and thinking, and at the same time, he's just hoping for a knock on the door of a friend, right? Of someone to come by and say hi, someone to return. Maybe it's a kid that goes off to college, and we're all just sitting here, empty nesters, waiting for people to come home, right? Yeah. I mean, I think that there's just a cool vibe from that thought of, man, life is now.
Yeah.
I can't remember who, one of those rich people on our podcast said, the only moment that matters is now.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, I've never been a huge Tolkien fan. I'm not a,
which is funny because I'm a C.S. Lewis fan, right?
I know, yeah,
contemporaries.
Yeah. I know. So, but I do love the poem. I like the idea of, I mean, it's a beautiful thought, right? It's funny, as you were reading that, the other thought that came to mind was in miles to go before I sleep, right? And I just kind of, maybe those two things are together, right? I love the idea of reflection and of, being intentional about that reflection, because I think that's part of this remembrance process. But I think at the same time, there's that idea of miles to go before I sleep kind of woven together with that, right? Reflect, remember, and then get busy to create more opportunities to reflect,
right?
Remember. Yeah.
Well, I think of that person that reached out to you.
Yeah.
Something pricked her heart, something sparked something, and she acted on it.
Yeah.
And now Monday at 8:30, she's going to be hanging out with you. You're going to be reading the good book, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's just something about like, that's because you don't have tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you feel something like, and I got to get better at this, right? Like, this is not Mike Freeman saying, hey, do this.
Right.
The teacher teaches what he needs to learn.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that, man. Yeah.
And so if we can get better at feel it, I want to act on that.
Yeah.
And maybe it's going to be something I need to work on and I need to change, because we all need to work on, we all need to change. Or it's going to be, I'm going to go help a friend.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The other day I was taking care of some of my business, and I knew I had a friend who in his business that he needed to take care of was bigger. His time window to get it done was shorter, and his help wasn't there. And I'm mowing my own lawn, and I'm like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Right. And so I tell, hey Kelly, I gotta hop in the car. I gotta go help somebody. Right. So like, can we get a little better at that?
Yeah.
I think that the closer we can narrow that gap, because life is going to insert a bunch of distractions in between when we feel it and when we act on it. So man, if we can just get to like, feel it, act on it. Especially Gretchen Rubin would say, if it takes less than a minute, do it. Yeah,
absolutely. I love that idea though. No, that's a great point, Mike. I think that's and I think that when we do those things, when we have those feelings and we act on them, and we start to make that part of who we are, then the acting becomes a little easier, right? The more we do it, it's like exercising any muscle, right? The more we do it, the easier it becomes. I think that's the key. And I'm not good at it. I'm working at it, but
that's what the research says, right? The research says you want to be away, act away.
Yeah, right.
And the feeling will follow.
That's right. 100%. Yeah.
You show up at the gym, you do the thing that you ought to do, and the feeling will follow. Don't wait for the feeling to do it. If you know you ought to do it, and you'll be rewarded for the feeling after.
Yeah. Amen, bro. I love it, man.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
It's been a good week. We got a lot of good things upcoming. We are quickly approaching episode 100, which is crazy to me. Like, people will ask me, like, how long have you been doing this? And for me, I'm like, I don't know, a couple months. But it doesn't seem like it's been as long as it has been, but it's been fun. So I'm looking forward to what the next century of episodes holds for us, man.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my powder dry, because that's one of the rules of the program. But next week's episode is going to teach a thing or two about friction. Next week's guest is going to be able to let us in on adversity and handling adversity with grace, and actually embracing it and learning from it. Right. A lot of us can endure it. But I think that some of us miss the lesson in it.
And I always
in the middle of it.
Absolutely. What's the verse in Doctrine and Covenants? Endure it well. Like, I'm always tell people that's next level. Like, I endure things all the time, and I complain like a crazy man the whole time I'm doing it. But when we get to that point when endure it well, it's a whole different ball game. So I'm excited about that. Can you imagine?
And we do. Everybody, we sit next to people that are enduring their own personal Gethsemane, and you do not know it.
Yeah, that's right. They're enduring it well.
They're enduring it well, right? Yeah. I've got a T-shirt. I got a bumper sticker. I'm like, help me. And this person's like, in fact, they're the giver.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Which is,
can't wait.
Let's unearth that. Yeah, I love it, man. Well, hey, I'm excited for what we got coming up. I appreciate the conversation this morning, as always, Mike, and I'm looking forward to what's happening in the future with it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to kick the guests out every once in a while and connect and make some meetings. So looking forward to looking forward to next week. And yeah, bring on episode 100 and beyond.
Let's do it. All right, man. Have a good one.
See ya.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.